Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Hello, fellow connoisseurs of all things technological. We have for you today the very finest, tastiest technological tidbits to get you salivating. So find your comfy spot, put on your listening shoes, and welcome to another episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Now today, we're serving up a smorgasbord of delectable delights from the world of science and technology once again, and it's all just for you. Now how's this for a menu? We've got a story about what happens when fine art meets high tech. It's a world where everyone can have an original painted masterpiece on show in their very own lounge room. More of that later. For the coffee lovers among us, we've got a story that will either be a nifty little novelty or potentially the world's greatest abomination. And you've heard of the attack of the clones. Well, how about a battle of the drones? Now, modern warfare is undergoing a major overhaul right now as military forces arm wrestle for the upper hand in the skies. More of that in a moment, though. First, let's welcome to the microphone the irrepressible Matthew Dickerson.
I was a bit worried where you were going there. Irreplaceable, I was happy with. Irrepressible, yeah, I'm cool with that. There's some other era that maybe I'm not.
We just can't hold you down. You've got stuff to talk about.
That's right, we have. Now, one thing I've got to talk about this week is something that I learned, and I spend 25 hours a day with my head buried in technology, so I kind of figured that I'm across most things that happen, but of course it's a big technological world out there. And I was doing one of my radio interviews in the last week, and a caller rang in and started talking about what three words. And I'd vaguely heard of this, but it hadn't really been something I'd taken much notice of. And so I let him talk about it and did a quick bit of research as we talked about it and went back and forth. And it's not a bad idea, but it's interesting the way we humans, address certain things. So the idea is a locator. There's a guy in the UK who was doing music events, concerts, etc., and found it was hard to get people to deliver various things, stages, speakers, whatever, to exactly where he was at a festival.
Yeah.
Because you say, come to the festival and go 57 metres down to the right and go to the left at the tree. And, it's almost like a treasure hunt. And he was very frustrated with all this. And I would have thought there would have been simpler solutions, but he decided to create a tool that would let you locate anyone within 3 square metres on the Earth. So,
what?
Essentially...
Now I know what this is. What, 3 words?
Yep.
I've heard about this, but it's used in emergency circles, am I right?
That's one of the ways.
All right,
right.
But also to get your sound equipment delivered.
Well, whatever way you want to locate people. So GPS is fantastic, but it's unusual for me to say, just go 57 degrees, 28 minutes and 13 seconds.
No one's doing that.
No one's doing that. And no one can remember. We're not great at remembering strings of numbers, but as humans, we're pretty good at remembering words in general. I can remember your name, but if you gave me your serial number or your Medicare care number, then apart from stealing your identity, I probably wouldn't be trying to remember that. So what this whole concept is the planet is divided up for the entire planet into 3 metre square, so 3 metre by 3 metres, so 9 square metres effectively.
Yeah, okay.
So 3 metres by 3 metres. I reckon if I'm standing in a 3 metre square, I can find you or something I'm looking for. It's not too hard to find what you're looking for there. So if I go to a music concert and I've got to deliver some sound equipment, I go to that 3 metre square and I reckon I can look around and go, oh, it's got to go right there. How do we identify that though? There's an app, of course. You put a pin in, you put a location, you say where you are right now, and it gives you 3 words. And I reckon we can remember 3 words. So, for example, it could be filled, count, soap. So, James, I'll meet you at filled, count, soap. You can probably remember filled, count, soap easier than you can remember latitude and longitude GPS coordinates.
So I'm wondering how they work out the coordinates by 3 words.
The obvious thing to me would be, and I haven't looked into it deeply, but it would just be that matches back to a GPS coordinate. So those 3 words somewhere behind the scenes.
But someone's got to design that code. How do they come up with these random words to fit? Now, it makes sense that if you're working on latitude, that you might have a word that matches a latitude. And if you've got a longitude, then you might have a word that matches that. But that leaves another word.
Yeah, and the good part about it is the combination is important. So filled, count, soap would be a different location to count, filled, soap, for example. So the 3 words have got to be in the correct order.
Yeah, you've got to be in the correct order.
And so you start to think, well, there's a big planet there, and you divide that up into 3 metre squares. I should have looked up to see how many 3 metre squares makes up the entire surface of the planet, but it would be a large number, would be my estimation. Then you've got 3 words, but with 3 words, you've got a lot of combinations. You've got, even if we've only got a vocabulary of 1,000, well, it would be 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000 different combinations of those 3 words, and that's in one order, and then in different orders. So you mentioned emergency services. It is being used by emergency services, but if I ring emergency services in a bit of a panic, presumably, I'm not normally ringing 000 in a calm state. That's right. Then I probably have got to be aware of what 3 words. If the operator says, okay, I don't know exactly where you are, you're on a farm, for example, can you give me your what 3 words location? I'd be going, what language are you speaking to me in? So it's got to be more widely advertised, I suppose. And I did start in England, so it's probably more widely
the other
known.
reason I thought of emergency services, we were being inducted into an establishment. There was a big organisation. We were being inducted, and part of the building they said, here's the 3 words of the location of the emergency area.
Yep. And even that, they probably need to explain that better, because you'd go, well, what's that really mean? If there's an emergency, you say to 000, here are my 3 words, here's my location. But it makes sense. Street addresses, that's okay. You can say 57 somewhere street. You normally can remember that. And that narrows it down to, say, 1,000 square metres or whatever the block of dirt is there at that location. But narrowing it down to 3 metres or 3 metres by 3 metres, that's pretty cool. So it's
like if you're in a parkland or whatever, then that could be pretty handy, I would say.
Now, I did wonder how popular it's been, whether it's been successful. And the data I found was that it's been downloaded, the app's been downloaded something like 80 million times, which is a lot less than, say, 9 billion people on the planet. But it's obviously being used by some number of people across the planet. And presumably that means everywhere on the ocean as well, because it's the entire face or surface of the Earth.
Isn't it?
MH370, someone should have just said what their 3 words were when they were going down, and we'd all be okay. We would have found an MH370 by now. So it's an interesting concept, but it's amazing to me as well. And there's one of the stories we're going to do today, which probably leads into this, that you have an idea and then you go, let's run with that idea. Now, if I'm sitting around the pub and someone says, I'm going to divide the planet into 9 square metres or 3 by 3 metre pixels across the planet, I go, right, well, what are you doing tomorrow? Like, that seems like a big job. That seems like, come back to me in 10 years' time when you finish doing that. So that seems like a big job. And then assigning words to that, and then creating an app for all of that. But someone thought this was a big enough problem.
So there's a logical code there somehow. And I'd be impressed with how they came up with it.
Well, I'm interested in that. Now, I'm going to look at that one now, because I'm interested whether they did do a logical code, or
if there's a system, or is it just completely randomised?
Whether they just said, don't repeat this. And if I was doing it, I may well just do a hash of I'd probably sort the words into an order, and then I'd do a hash of the GPS coordinates, so it was always unique, and then I'd just assign a word out of that list. But maybe there is maybe every time I say the word filled as part of that does relate to some coordinate. But I imagine, without any data to back me up, that it's just random or some sort of hashing of the coordinates, so that it doesn't relate to it. You can't work out from that what it might mean. You just got to use the app to look it up.
Just got to use the app.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a fascinating solution to a small problem. Going to a music concert, sure, I can see it being a great solution there. But most things I go to now, I can ring someone maybe and say, come in this direction, see the big yellow pole, I'm over near that type of thing.
It's very clever, but it needs more people to catch on, we're saying.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. It's about 10 years ago that they started this, and so it's gotten some way. To get emergency service on board, obviously it's got some recognition out there. Yeah. But it needs more. It needs you and me using it. Once that starts, that's it. It's all going to happen then.
All right, folks, time to get this show on the road with our first story. Now, I hope I'm not alone here, but I think there's something to strutting around carrying a black umbrella with a sleek wooden handle. I think of Steed in the 60s classic Avengers TV series, or Gene Kelly in Singing in the Rain. You can strike a real man about town pose with a quality umbrella, is what I'm saying. But in 2026, that may be all about to fall apart. You see, the umbrella of the future may not need a handle or a stem even. Strutting just won't look the same. Imagine a complete hands-free umbrella drone, one that hovers above your head while you dodge the puddles, sipping your takeaway latte with one hand and carrying your work bag with the other. This is going to bring an entirely new aesthetic to wet weather mornings, I think, there, mate.
I'm going to have a look at your umbrellas now. I didn't realise you thought the amount
No,
about
I've
town.
got golfing umbrellas. I did own a black umbrella with a wooden handle, and
Right.
I loved it, and then I lost it.
Oh, no. I think
Someone
it wasn't
stole
lost. That's more where it's
They
at.
wanted to look good while they strutted.
And where's the locator device on that umbrella now so you can find who's got it? I better just check my garage to make sure it's not there. So
No one can steal your drone. It's just going to follow you around everywhere.
this one's going to follow you around. And it does seem to me, and I say this as a technologist, it does seem to me like technology for the sake of technology. and that sounds like a bad thing, and it probably is, but it's fascinating. So many years ago, one radio program I was doing, at the first show, and it was a fortnightly program I did with this particular host, I did a story about an umbrella that had a bit of technology in it. I think it predicted the weather, had the colour of the handle change, so it wasn't a lovely wooden handle. It would change. So as you walked out the door, it was a different colour. If it was going to rain that day, so you'd pick it up if it was blue or whatever it was. And I, as a bit of a throwaway line, I said to the host, I'll do a different technology umbrella story each fortnight I come in. And as I went away, I went, that's a lot. That's 26 for the year. I don't know if that was such a smart idea.
It's going to be hard.
But I did manage to find a different technology umbrella story every fortnight
There is
for
a
the
whole
entire year.
industry in
Oh my gosh.
umbrella technology.
Some of them were stupid. Some of them absolutely ridiculous.
Of course.
One of them
Yeah.
projected a image up onto the underside of the umbrella so you could like watch a movie as you're walking along.
As you were tripping over.
In
and
the
falling
rain,
in
tripping
puddles.
over,
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
up
yeah.
in your umbrella. So some of them weren't that sensible. But that story and that time, that was going back a number of years, that was probably 15 or more, maybe 18 years ago now, they didn't have a drone umbrella. And I'd say for two reasons. One, because it's maybe not the greatest idea. But the second thing is, we've now progressed so far in some of our technology that things that we're coming up with today would have been not difficult, but I would say impossible only 10 or 15 years ago. And this is an example. So drones, we know about drones. They're fantastic. They're a little bit noisy, but they're getting quieter. They're very good in terms of the stability of them. Their follow me technology is great. I remember the very first drone I got. I went out into a paddock at a friend's farm and I got in my car and I put my drone up in the air and I said, follow me, follow the car, focused on my car, drove along, and I had someone in the passenger seat watching the image on the drone as it followed, and it took about 28 seconds before the drone came crashing to the ground. And when I went back and reviewed it, had a look at the footage, etc., what I discovered was that it was very good at following you. It had some good obstacle detection on there, but leaves on trees were just too small. It just caught a leaf on a tree and it came tumbling to the ground.
Bang.
It's progressed a long way since that day. And the other thing that I am impressed with is when I go and spy on my neighbours and I put the drone up in the air and see what they're up to,
Let's not give too much away. Yeah.
the drone is so still. And just the technology on a modern drone that says hover in that location and keep it in that location despite a bit of wind or a gust of wind or some movements or whatever it might be, they're very good at staying in that spot. So you combine all that technology, and batteries obviously improved all the time, and the follow me is better. So this particular umbrella is like a drone with a big umbrella in the middle. So it's got 4 propellers on the 4 edges or the 4 corners of the drone, of the umbrella, sorry. And it's got a camera on the inside, so you basically focus it down on you. You say, look at my head, look at the little bald spot there, follow that bald spot
Easy
around.
to follow,
That's right. Can't mistake that. And then sit there maybe half a metre above me as I walk around. I did wonder what happens when you go inside, because you shouldn't have an umbrella open inside, of course, for bad luck, but also it might struggle with the door going through. You presumably got to stop when you get inside. But you're right, you can now use your hands. You can keep watching that show on your phone or whatever.
Well, that's going to be like when you're walking down George Street in Sydney on a wet day and everyone's got them and when
they're bumping into each other.
Yeah.
So it's probably something best done
That'll be
in
a
a less...
spectacle.
It would be a spectacle. Now, we talked about it before. I've only just come back from the Maldives, and there was a person there. There were some people with a lot of money on the Maldives, on the island there that I was on. And there was a person there who actually had someone employed to carry an umbrella around, and that person had to walk slightly behind this person, and they carried an umbrella around to keep the sun off them. And I wanted to go and say to them, you know what, you could just get one of these follow me umbrellas, but then I thought, I'm doing that poor person out of a job, so I won't even mention this umbrella that follows you around.
Not the time, not the place.
No, that's right. So don't know they would have appreciated it. So it's quite...
I think it's really cool technology, though. I can see myself getting one just for the
just
giggles,
for the sake of it.
but I'll still carry a black umbrella with a wooden handle.
So this one needs to have maybe some wooden trim on it. Maybe it's too heavy if you put wooden trim on it. But I think it is an example of technology for the sake of technology, but I'm okay with that because sometimes people do that. They create something just for the sake of it.
Yep.
And then someone else says, now, and then someone else says, what about...
We could use one of those when we do.
That's right. Before you know it, we've got a wonderful solution out there for someone. So keep an eye out for that one, especially down in the middle of George Street in Sydney.
Now, people who remember the 90s may also recall that for a while there, so much of the technology we used to own, well, it had a clear plastic case. Now, thinking back, I guess it was a bit weird to see these see-through cases. They were all the rage. On computers and stereos and gaming consoles, transparent cases let you see all the innards. And in the 90s, that was really cool. But then came the noughties. And it became all a bit tacky, and so last decade. So we ditched the clear cases and got back into smooth, clean, opaque lines again. But Matt, there's something about seeing the inner workings that seems to mesmerise people, and they're back.
And they want to see what's inside it.
Yeah.
They get this opaque case and they go, gee, I wonder what it looks like inside.
So they've got to crack it open and bust it. It's not working anymore.
And the reality is that it's probably not that exciting what's inside, especially with modern chips being so small. But I actually think the original concept back in, say, the 90s when it was a bit cool, I think it was probably Apple iMac. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I
and
remember
groovy.
that one, yep.
But again, that was a CRT screen, not an LED screen. And they had a bit more excitement about them. There was a bit of bulk about them. There were things going on around there. So that was maybe more interesting. You had Nintendo. They had a transparent Game Boy, which, again, looked a bit interesting. There were wires and soldering and a PCB in there and things. So it looked interesting. And I reckon around the same time was when we started building our stadiums, exposing all the structure that kept the stadium up. I'm talking about football stadiums, cricket stadiums, that type of thing. And I remember my dad was a builder and he used to talk about that, and he said part of the job of a builder, when you build a house, he would build houses, you build a house and structurally you make it so that it stands up. And then a lot of the work in skirting and architraves is covering up.
Hide it.
That's right. So I remember when he saw one stadium at one time, he went, this is terrible. Look at this. All the things that are holding this up. Well, why haven't they covered them up? That seemed like a bit of a modern trend to show. Look at how good this stadium is. It's got all these things holding it up, which maybe gave you confidence as well. But yeah, you're right. When we found that the chips were small and the batteries were a bit boring, because a lot of the modern devices we've got now, the battery takes up most of it. You look at the inside of a mobile phone, there's very small chips on there, very small printed circuit board and a big battery. You're trying to fit all the other stuff's trying as small as possible to fit as big a battery as possible to give you that battery life there. But
so what's in this? These transparent cases. Then are we just going to invent stuff to put in there so it looks fancy, so it looks busy, but that's not doing anything?
I have seen people who have had phone cases that look like a printed circuit board. Yeah. So you put your phone down, they go, oh wow, look at that! I can see the inside of your phone. Well, it's actually a case on the outside, but it looks pretty cool. So maybe, but you've got some mobile phone manufacturers who have now started going with some transparent outsides, and so you can see what's inside, whether that might be boring or not. Earbuds, I've seen some transparent earbuds. I've seen headphones, even turntables, and maybe a turntable's a bit more interesting because it's still got...
It's got some moving parts.
Yeah, it's got a belt inside there, so it's got a few little bits and pieces, but don't discount the old is new again concept where people go, oh, transparent, how cool is that? Well, that was cool in the 90s, but people that were born after the 90s don't know that it was cool in the 90s, so they come along and go, oh, let's have some transparent stuff. So I think you'll see a bit more of it. I don't know if it's a full revival of transparent stuff, but I think we're seeing... But
it's creeping back in.
It is, yeah. We're seeing it in a few things compared to no things, which is quite interesting, and keep your eye out for some of that stuff. And I still find it interesting what's inside there or how little is inside there.
Now, if you're like me and all forms of code writing look really impressive because you don't understand any of it, then listen up. If you ever had a spectacular idea for a new app, but it all collapsed into the abyss of the second you realised that you were needing to have to go and write a little bit of computer code, then you could have really used some Claude Code help. Matt, Claude Code AI is converting plain English instructions into coding gobbledygook so that anyone can get involved.
Yeah, and I don't like this.
Well, you're a coder nerd, and I'm not. This is where we differ enormously.
And I remember years ago, I was doing some database programming with an old, very early version of Microsoft Access, and I wrote about 20 lines of code to remove some of the controls on a form because I wanted the people that were using it to have to use my buttons rather than an X up the top right-hand corner. And the next version came out and there was a checkbox, remove X from the top right-hand corner. I've gone, no, I just wrote 20 lines of code in the last version. Now you're going to give it to anyone just by clicking a button. It's now gone next level.
Next level.
When you can just say, I've got an idea. And so this is Claude Code by Anthropic. And we've talked about Claude a little bit before in terms of doing some automatic scheduling and controlling things for you. But Anthropic released this about the middle of last year, but over the Christmas season, it went off because people were sitting around going, oh, I've got this idea. That'd be good. I wish I could do that. Well, you can. You just go and get Claude Code, or there's some competitors, Base 44, Cursor. You can even use things like Copilot or ChatGPT, although they're not specialised in it. They'll do a little bit of it as well. And you can say, I want an app to do this. And I've got some little examples of people that have said, I want an app to do something, or I want a program to do something, and have no idea how to write that, how to do it, how to troubleshoot it, how to error check that, how to basically do any of it, but they've got an idea. And so there was one particular person who was not a coder at all, and he wanted an image recognition system to sort his children's laundry. So he wanted to know which bits were whichever child, and so take photos of there, and it would show, because him and his wife were struggling with sorting all the clothes out for the kids. Who owns this again? Which pair of undies is this one? So he identified them all and then basically had some code that you'd show that photo and that would say which child owned that.
I tell you, I need that app. I was fine with it while they were young, but now that they're all young adults, it's like this could belong to any of the four of us.
So I think it's a bit scary. There was another person who wrote an app to give the kids their daily routines and basically assign them to all the kids, do the dishwashing, clean your room, all that type of thing. So I didn't mind that one. There was another person who was a photographer, and he built an interactive documentary site with maps, images and audio for all his photographs in one day. So basically he said, here's my idea, you go and write the code. It came back with thousands of lines of code. That's cool if it does the job. Look at that. Well, oh, no, this part doesn't work properly. Just fix it up for me, will you? So again, it will do that sort of error checking as you go. This one I found fascinating. A US prosecutor built an emergency alert app that allowed users to mass message contacts during crises. So what's the US prosecutor doing that for? I would have thought that would have been maybe emergency services.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a dangerous app because you might contact people in an emergency, but you might also play silly people and go and send messages to lots of people in non-emergencies if you're that way inclined. I'm sure this US prosecutor wasn't, but that's the power. When you've got all this programming power, you can do things with
misused?
Yeah, that's right. There was, and I love this one. A finance lecturer at university created a stock market trading simulator so his students could actually play the stock market without risking any money. He built the whole simulator in 2 hours. Took it into class and said, "Radio kids, we're going to do some stock market
That's
simulation."
an emergency lesson plan. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right. You wake up in the morning and go, "Oh no!" It's not bad actually. Yeah. But again, that sort of simulation software relies on some pretty heavy computing power to see what happens. But he wanted to demonstrate what happens if there is a run on this particular stock, or if everyone decides that this is the stock to get into. How much does that affect the rest of the stock market? Now, it may not have been perfect, and I don't know that I want to go and invest in shares based on what it came up with. But as a simulation tool, what a wonderful little concept. It reminded me of the movie The Internship, and I might have mentioned it before because it was quite a funny movie. Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson come back as older people in a younger people's world applying for a job at Google. And the whole idea of the internship is you go away and show Google how impressive you are, because millions of people want to work at Google apparently, and then they give the internship. And these guys were too old because everyone else was young, but they had to come up with an idea for an app and write it. And their idea was they went out one night having too much to drink and thinking, we're too old for this is all a bit silly. And then one of them sent a text message to his girlfriend when he was a bit too drunk. And so they went, there's our idea. We should have something that checks if you're able to send a text message because you might have had too much to drink. So there's a simple mathematical problem or something simple you had to do to prove you were sober enough to then send a text message. They had no idea how to code it, but in their little group they had someone who could do the coding. If they did that today, if you had that same idea today, and I'm sure those apps exist now, but if you had that same idea, you go to Claude Code and say, I'm always sending my girlfriend texts when I'm drunk. They're inappropriate. I shouldn't be doing it. Can you write some code for me that just locks my phone until it proves or until I
Protects
prove
me
it
from
myself.
myself.
Protects me from myself. That's right. So go and have a look at it. Some of them are free. Some of them you'll pay $30 a month for. Some of them, and you can pay more than that. Some of them have got different levels. But if you've just got an idea, and that's the
So
secret.
all you need now is the idea.
The idea. That's right. You don't
Yeah.
need the
Any
skilled
technical
programmers.
know-how.
Yeah, and the idea is often, I've heard it quoted about the Nobel Prize. The people who win Nobel Prizes in science aren't the people who necessarily come up with the answers, it's the people who come up with the questions. And then you've got to answer them, but coming up with the question is the tough part. You come up with the idea for an app, there's probably tools out there to help you actually realise that idea. Unbelievable.
Now, Matt, I don't know about this next story. I mean, we've reached a point here in Australia where a large section of the population are pretty fussy about their coffee. We've got gourmet coffee being poured in cafes on every street corner these days here in Australia. Australia does good coffee. So when I hear that they're trialling robot baristas in the US, I think, yeah, but Americans mustn't be that fussy. So I guess it makes sense. We're not talking about vending machines and their imitation coffee here, folks. This is robot arms frothing the milk and bashing the portafiller. Matt, is this robot coffee likely to catch on, do you think?
I think it will.
Yeah.
And it's a few things about this. One,
I'd like to have an artisan behind the,
behind
the machine.
The thing is, if you just got it delivered to your table, would you know the difference? And I'd love to do some double-blind tests on that.
Probably not.
And have some people who have the coffee come out and go, taste which one and tell me which one tastes better. Because what they've been doing with this is they've had robots being a bit sneaky and they've been watching expert baristas. So they know exactly how to tap the portafiller and get all the old coffee beans out of it. They know how to tamp the coffee beans down. They know how to do all the things that a barista does. But the advantage they've got is they can do it the same every single time. They don't call in sick. They don't say, I've been standing on my feet here all day, I just need to have a rest. They don't get in a bad mood at 5 to 5 and say, I'm not giving you a coffee because it's almost closing time. They just keep spitting out the coffee. Now, we still rely, it's interesting, isn't it, that we still rely on such an old-fashioned method with so many old, clumsy tools. You go to some place and you can press a button and produce a coffee.
Yeah.
Now, people tell me that that's nowhere near as good as a proper barista-made coffee, but maybe if you started drinking that one often enough, maybe you would know the difference. I'm not sure. Maybe you would. But we still like the old methods.
And that's right.
Fine.
It's going to be really hard to be a coffee snob when it's a robot that's making your coffee.
That's right. I want Robot 1 making my coffee, not Robot 2. He always does it better. But I think that's the thing. It would be replicable. It could be the same every single time. So you're not worried about, what, James is sick today. Oh, Mary, she doesn't do coffee as well as James does. So nothing against Mary, nothing against anyone who makes coffee. But it's fascinating. So this is happening already. You've got apartment lobby cafes in America. They've got a robot named Jarvis who's making these coffees. You've got coffee robots turning up in things like airports, retail stores, event spaces. So you're running an event, it's hard to get that expert barista for 3 days that you're running a conference. They've got their normal job. If they're any good, they've already got a job at a cafe. How am I going to get someone for my little coffee van for 3 days? Well, this is the thing. And what they've done is they haven't gone for a humanoid robot. They've got an espresso machine with arms. So it's basically just an espresso machine and 2 arms come out and they do all the things because you don't need a robot to stand there. Why bother about having legs and all the rest of it? So it's probably...
There's still a bit to get my head around here, and I'm prepared to accept the label of being a Luddite. But...
Well, I think the thing is if you turn up to an airport and you have the choice of no coffee or robot arms over there...
Yeah, I know what I'm going for.
You'd say, look, I'll live with it. And then you taste it, you go... Oh, gee, I'll go and get another one. Oh, it tastes the same again. I mean, I do wonder about how they go with patterns in the milk, whether they do the microfoam and then they do a lovely little pattern. And
I got a seahorse the other day and I thought that was impressive.
Seahorse, that's not bad, actually. So there is that, but in terms of making the coffee, surely they can go through the process and do exactly the same as a human. And they do talk about the fact that it's not taking jobs away because people don't want to work as baristas. They're struggling with labour shortages and they're struggling with getting people to turn up every day on time and do the work. So maybe a robot barista is the solution.
We're shifting the tone now to something a little bit more life and death. The latest revolution on the battlefield is drone warfare. Small and cheap weapons that move quickly and easily, inflicting maximum damage with their operators sitting in their office chairs thousands of miles away in safety. Now, these drones can move in large numbers and are very difficult to defend against, particularly as there's such a minimal cost at stake for the offensive force. Now, Matt, the rules of engagement have changed, but China has been exploring the principle of fighting fire with fire. And we're now entering an era of drone-on-drone combat.
And they're doing it a little bit differently rather than clever programmers or maybe Claude writing some machine algorithms to say, go and attack. They've actually stolen, as with so many stories we do, stolen things from the animal kingdom. And they looked at how hawks attack. And so they've basically stolen the attack algorithm, if you want to call it that, from a hawk and said, this is how we'll program our drones to attack. And one of the things they found, which was a little bit counterintuitive, was when they were programming drones with humans going, let's just go and attack, they had some dove drones coming in, if you like, and they were just going and attack the one at the head, like go through and attack as you see them in sequence. And then when they studied hawk attacks, and so many times in the animal kingdom, it's the weakest member of the opposing party.
Yeah,
so
right.
when you've got a lion out there hunting impala, then they don't go for the big, strong impala at the front. They go, where's the weak one? Let's take out the weak one and work our way up if we need to. So they actually found the hawk drones were better than the computer or the human computer algorithm drones because they were attacking the weakest drones in the attack first.
I wonder what the weak drone looks like. I mean, how you've got a swarm of drones coming your way.
Yeah.
They all look the same.
They look the same, and that's where I suppose the algorithm has been written to say, copy the animal kingdom, copy what a hawk would do. It's going for the weak ones. Don't spend too long thinking about it. Just go for it. And if you can't work out the weakest one, just go for whichever one's closest to you.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit different. So they've been doing these tests where they've been having dove drones come in to be attacked. So let's say you're trying to drop some bombs or attack a building, and then you've got the defence drones, the hawk drones, stopping those dove drones coming in. And with all the testing they did, they found that hawks were more effective in terms of their thinking process than the computer or the human-generated algorithm. So fascinating. Then they started looking at other things. They started looking at ants, sheep, coyotes, whales. So looking at all sorts of different parts of the animal kingdom. So ant, they said that when they looked at ant, the decision-making was not one head ant that said, right, today we're going over there to get some food. It was a joint decision. So they tried to work out how you get drones to make decisions across
ESP.
Well, maybe, but the drones could communicate with each other.
Absolutely.
Probably easier than ants could communicate with each other. Sheep, I wondered about sheep because I've typically found sheep pretty stupid.
That's where the drones just behave completely randomly. Some fly away to safety when they're supposed to be engaging.
That's right. So
then one jumps and they all jump. Like, what?
So they found that the spacing and group cohesion with sheep under threat, you study that, and then they worked out how drones could work out ways to be better in their defence by changing their grouping and their cohesion, not again by being systematic and being in some sort of tight formation, but a bit like sheep, as we said, where they tend to go in every direction. And we just think that's sheep being stupid, but maybe that's sheep being really clever. And they're going, it's going to be harder for someone to attack us if we're going in every direction. So let's go and do that. I don't know how much to think about it.
Yeah, they're not thinking a whole lot.
It's probably more just
anyone who's spent time around
instinct.
sheep knows they're not thinking.
No, that's right. So it is fascinating. I mean, unfortunately, the bottom line of this, it's all about military. And it is a Chinese university. It's Beihang University, but that university's got very close military links. So it's interesting that they're doing this, but it's also interesting that we're talking about it. So I'm not sure why we even know about it, because if it was so good, you think they'd
only
be
know
saying
about
nothing.
what they want us to know about?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they said they're using hawks, but really they're using eagles.
Well, I guess I wasn't surprised because it's logical. If you're got an offensive, if you're defending against a swarm of drones coming your way, it makes sense to have your own swarm of drones defending you as well.
That's right.
And so, it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how battlefields sort of work out.
Well, unmanned warfare sounds good, but ultimately, if you've just got a bunch of drones attacking another bunch of drones, people aren't probably saying, well, our country's at risk because there's just a bunch of drones fighting. But I do worry about how many drones China could produce. And so you're on a swarm of drones. Is that the right term for a swarm of drones? Do we have a better name than swarm of drones?
Well, that's the term I was reading when I was looking at notes there. Yeah,
it kind of makes sense, but maybe we need to come up with a new word. There's another word for us to come up with.
So it all began with chat rooms in the 90s, and then that quickly became online dating. Now, since the dawn of the internet, the ones and zeros that race around the ether, they've broken down huge barriers for traditional romance. And it's allowed more people to access emotional connections. It was seen as unconventional at first, but it's grown to become a new form of normal. And now, since the onset of artificial intelligence, the target of an online user's emotional connection may not even be another human, but rather a chatbot, a virtual partner. So, Matt, what are people saying about the impacts of online chatbot dating? Yeah,
it's about chatbot dating. It's about loneliness. It's about connection. So this is all about Gen Z, which is born 97 to 2012, thereabouts.
I always get confused by this.
Yeah.
All I know is I'm Gen X.
Good.
Well, I'm sticking with it, right?
And sometimes there's some blurred lines about the edges of that. But let's say 97 to 2012. So this is our kids are in the Gen Z bracket, definitely. Right. So kids aged about 16 to 29. And they did a survey in Britain, and they found that 33%, so a third of kids in that age category, felt lonely often. Which is interesting because that's a time of your life when you're out exploring, you've got a bunch of friends in inverted commas, you're going out to functions together.
Loaded with opportunities, I remember.
Absolutely. So, and you're always doing stuff with people. Some of them might not be your best friend in 10 years' time. Yeah. Some of them will be, but you're doing stuff with a bunch of people all the time. So I found that a bit surprising. But then when you start to break down some of those stats, then some of these kids said that, or 21% of them said it was easier to talk to AI than a real person, which probably doesn't help their loneliness, but maybe they think it does help their loneliness. So these are kids that are probably the real first digital natives that have really grown up with all of this communication.
But loneliness, I think, is probably, it's all a matter of perspective, right? So it doesn't matter who you're talking to, whether they're real or otherwise, virtual. If it's curing that feeling of being alone, then I think it's probably working then.
And it may well be. It may well be solving some of those emotional needs. But but how attached does someone get to some of these conversations? So it probably didn't help that we had COVID in the middle of this while you're out exploring. And I remember my third child, he went off to university. I think he was there having a wonderful time at college for the first 3 or 4 weeks before COVID locked everything down, and so then he's back at home working remotely. And the fun of university, I mean, yes, you learn things, but the fun of university is all those connections. And so I felt a bit sorry for him that all of that initial stuff was great for a few weeks and then locked down for how many months before he could go back. So that certainly had an issue there. But I read one review there, one person that talked about it, 23 years old. He said he would talk to ChatGPT at least 8 times a day when he's feeling lonely. And so what worries me a little bit about that is if you're turning to ChatGPT constantly, you're probably not creating those human connections as well. So it might be curing the loneliness, as you say. You're having a conversation with someone and, gee, Chat's pretty friendly and gives you really reassuring comments and you feel good about yourself afterwards, but it's still not a real human connection. And if your emotional needs are being addressed there, do you need to have it addressed anywhere else? So it's actually interesting. They often ask chatbot the same questions, or chatbot same questions they would ask friends. They find that a chatbot is always available, non-judgmental, instantly responsive. That's definitely right. And they feel like they can ask anything rather than be a bit embarrassed about asking something. Go and ask Chat that. I know some people do the same with medical issues. They'll go, I should go to the doctor, but he's going to laugh at me when I go and tell him about this problem. I'll just check with Chat, and then Chat says, go to the doctor now. So, okay, I'll go now. Or, yep, it's nothing to be worried about. So some people do use it as a bit of a first look at loneliness or medical or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, like, you mentioned that it's accessible at all times. So middle of the night and you're having trouble sleeping, well, at least you've got this friend who's ready to chat. And so there's a positive there, but then you're not trying to sleep anymore, so there's a negative. It's keeping you awake. Yeah. The other problem we know is that some of your ideas, however outlandish, these chatbots are programmed to agree with you and support. Yeah. So there's also worrisome things there.
That's right. And there is that comment in this survey. It talks about the fact that AI is very agreeable, and that can blur some boundaries between support and reinforcement. Whereas a human, if you were talking to a human, they might say, I don't know if that's the best idea you've ever had.
Yeah.
But look, let's look at it from this direction. But Chat says, yay, go for it. What a wonderful idea. Go and take on the world with that. So look, I think the thing that I think about this is that it's not about banning AI. It's here. When you couldn't ban it. Stand at the edge of the ocean until the tide has stopped coming in. Well, it's not going to happen. But it's just about some controls, how it's used. Do we try and put bans in place for young people like we've got with social media now, where you can't have access to a chatbot under age of 16 or under a certain age, because you might start to form more connections there than with humans. So it's going to be a fascinating world that we see in 10 years' time.
That's right. And I just think what we're going to see is an evolution of the term relationship.
Yeah, you're probably right,
Yeah. When Face ID technology landed, it was something of a revelation. Suddenly, a piece of technology could recognise something as nuanced as a human face and distinguish one human from all other faces. Technology could see people as individuals just by looking at them. But now humans are programmed to do this from birth. We, of course, know that. I don't say but now, but they've always been able to do that. It's one of our few instincts that we still have. And it's why we often see human faces in clouds and random carpet patterns, etc. But how would you go recognising a brown bear? I mean, they all look the same, right? I guess, from our perspectives. Well, not to current biometric software. Wildlife monitoring is getting an AI upgrade, and the bears will never be anonymous ever again, Matt.
So I didn't realise this. I probably haven't really thought about it. Brown bears aren't really that big an issue in Australia. You don't come across too many brown bears.
But this is where the story is coming from, North America.
Correct, that's right. And so they're notoriously difficult to identify individually from season to season or through seasons, because...
You just got to pick how cranky they get when you steal their porridge.
That's right.
Yeah?
Then you know, this is that
that's
one.
That's a daddy bear, right, okay.
So they have such weight changes from season to season. Their fur is obviously thicker in winter and they're hibernating, so they do change quite dramatically. So recognising them, keeping a track on that individual bear, and you want to do this because you want to make sure that you can retain the numbers of bears that you need in terms of conserving bears and making sure you're protecting bears going into the future. So when you try and do all that and try and identify which bear's which, it's quite difficult. But now, and they've tried things like tagging and collars and that sort of thing, and that's not great because you've got to get close enough to the bear to tag them. Or can you put this collar on, please? I'm not sure they're all very agreeable when you say, put this collar on. But now there's some researchers at Alaska Pacific University that have basically come up with an AI facial recognition tool for bears. And so they've shared tens of thousands of photos of different bears so they can work out the distinguishing points as the weight changes, as the fur changes. What are the distinguishing points on these particular faces of these bears? So they had 109 bears, they had tens of thousands of photos, took all those, fed that through AI, and now AI can identify those bears on an ongoing basis. Again, have a camera set up as the bear comes through. Oh, yep, that's Mary, that's Johnny, that's Billy, etc.
See, I want them all to get like names, cute names.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure the researchers give them nice names.
It's going to be a challenge to get them to smile for the camera too.
Well, and you're right. With a Face ID, you look at your computer to log on, or you look at your phone. What they did with this was they had photos at different angles. So they had,
you got to get the profile, and
as it goes side on, front on. The main things that were distinguishing them were the ear placement. That apparently varies a lot with bears.
Okay.
The muzzle shape, which kind of makes sense, and the brow bone angle. So those three things were some of the main things that the AI tool was looking at to try and identify these different bears. But it's in use now as we speak. They're identifying bears with this tool, and they can track where the bears go, how long they might live, a whole range of things to try and protect all the bears out there. I'm sure there's some people who would be happy with them not protecting the bears out there, but we know we've got to still try and protect our nature. So.
Look, I reckon first the bears, then the chickens. This is the sky's the limit on this one. I reckon. Let's do all the animals.
So we know.
And I want all the animals to have names
and birth certificates. Can you give me birth certificates for all the animals on the planet?
Now, how would you like a little more original artwork in your house? If so, then this next piece of tech is going to blow your mind. Now, if you like the look of painting on canvas, you can now buy a digital screen that paints any picture from your voice command. They're called e-ink canvases. You can change the artwork daily or keep it forever. Matt, these have the potential to really take off in the interior design sphere, but I hope for my artist friend's sake that there'll still be a place for traditional artists as well.
It's getting less and less, isn't it? I mean, I cheat in my house. I've got some beautiful classic artwork hanging on my wall, but it's a TV frame, and I can just say, I'm in a Van Gogh mood this week. I might just put some Van Gogh images up there. Or
but
Picasso.
it's a Van Gogh in a TV screen. This is something different.
This is something different. So your question, I suppose, about whether we need artists going into the future, yes, we've got some of those artists where we're taking a copy of that work and putting it on a TV screen, but this is different. And there's a couple of things that I like about this. One is the e-ink canvas uses zero power, not low power, zero power after it's created the image. So yes, it uses power creating the image, and then if you like that image and you leave it there for a week, a day, a month, a year, it'll stay there because it doesn't need any power to keep that image once it's been created. It is. So that's pretty fascinating from a technology perspective. The second part is it is voice driven. So if you feel like a picture of a wonderful landscape with your sheep that are going in all sorts of directions, and you
Painted
think,
in the style of Monet.
that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So you describe that in as much detail as you like, and this little frame will paint that for you. And if you don't like it, do it again. No, I want more sheep. 3 sheep is not enough. That doesn't show the randomness of sheep. I want 28 sheep in the photo or the image, please, that you create, and away it will go.
But you see all the brushstrokes and you see the delicate nature, like the canvas mark as well.
Yeah, all of the things that you would expect to see in a normal artwork hanging on your wall. And for someone that walked in, sure, if they looked close enough, they'd see it was a perfectly flat screen. It hasn't got the same texture. But if they looked as they walked in the door, they'd go, wow, that's a nice painting you've got on the wall. Or maybe it's a terrible painting, depending on how you describe
I
it.
think you had the Mona Lisa.
That's right.
The original.
Maybe they've got some copyright on certain images there. Maybe they won't create certain images that are out there. But it is quite interesting. Again, a few things combining here. One is AI to create the image in the first place and then recreate it and keep doing it. We've seen that with various AI tools that it's quite good at actually creating an image for you, although I still get frustrated with words. It still just doesn't know how to – it knows how to spell, but it doesn't know how to spell on a drawing. It keeps spelling things wrong on drawing. So then I, in the end, say, remove all the words from the drawing and just give me the drawing, please.
And sometimes the numbers come out really weird.
Yeah, that's right. And like what I don't get about that is that obviously it knows – how to put together the letters and numbers if you just said write some text.
Yes.
But when you do a picture, it suddenly goes,
throws it all out the window.
I don't know how to do that.
I'm just going to do squiggles.
So, yeah, they do like that sometimes. So that's fascinating. You can draw something, but then I just love that idea that you just leave it there for as long as you feel like that's the image you want to see and then change it again at some point in the near future. So digital photo frames, I've had them for a lot of years and they're great for pictures of kids and that sort of thing, but this is a completely different concept again. So, yeah, I can see this being a Christmas present or a birthday present for maybe myself or some of the kids there somewhere.
Wearable tech gets a fair bit of coverage in our podcast episodes. And can I say, the volume of data that I am currently personally generating is enormous. My doctor does not like to see me coming with my spreadsheets and all. Bathroom scales, they've also come a long way in the last decade too. No longer just a source of body shaming with a single nasty number, some models have moved well past just measuring your weight. They've become next level health systems, Matt.
They have, and this is fascinating. So I've seen the ones for a little while that do your weight and they do your body fat. You stand on the electrodes and presumably it sends some sort of current through your feet and says how much fat you've got. I think it probably does.
It senses your aura?
Maybe that as well. Yeah. So I think it does some sort of calculation around your height and your weight and kind of makes an estimation there. But it's giving you information that might be useful for you going forward. This is a new body scan scale. Not sure whether it should be called a scale or a body scan, but it looks like a normal scale, but it's got like a scooter handle. And so by holding onto the scooter handle and weighing yourself at the same time, it gives you a whole bunch of stuff, including an ECG. And it's obviously using the handle to do that part of it. So it's giving you your weight, giving you your body fat, it's giving you your nerve and vascular health, it's giving you your heart health, sinus rhythm. It gives you a whole range of things that you can just basically go along to your doctor with your spreadsheet, but 15 different health metrics it'll give you out of your scale, which, wow, how fascinating is that?
That's something.
And the good thing about this is, again, if I was looking at this and saying, what advice am I giving to people out there? It would not be ignore your doctor, just take this and that's it. But I'd be looking at it for changes. And typically what these will do is they will connect via Wi-Fi to the cloud, and you'll have information where you can go and check on these, and you can go and look at what's happening with your various metrics, not just your weight, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's important to our health as well. But weight is one of those. So it's getting better and better all the time. I have seen ones that are incredibly expensive in gyms, that type of thing, where you stand on a rotating board and it spins you around and does a whole bunch of measurements of your body and then tells you that you look like an old man, and you go, that's because I am. So
It feels a bit like something out of Star Trek.
Yeah, but it does. It's doing that sort of scanning. This doesn't do that. And again, I imagine those devices I see in gyms are many thousands of dollars and probably not a big home market for those. But even this here, I mean, these are $400, which sounds like an expensive scale. But if you start thinking, well, if I can live healthier or live longer, $400, maybe that's not so bad after all. But we are getting better at all of it. We made the joke, or maybe I've made the joke often, that we're getting unhealthier as we go forward, but we're getting better ways to see just how unhealthy we are.
Unhealthy we are.
And this is just another way.
Checking on it.
That's right. This is another way to see just how unhealthy we are.
And that's that for another week of Tech Talk. We are done and dusted, completely dust-free, you might even say. Thanks for another cracking Tech Talk, Matt.
Always my pleasure. And I'm just going to go out and test out some of those coffees while I walk along with my umbrella, protecting me from the
floating
rain.
above your head.
Just not sure which one I prefer, the robot coffee or the umbrella, but combining the two might be the solution, I think.
And you'll look so dapper while you're doing it too. Thanks for joining us once again, folks. We're very proud of our cosy little podcast, and so we are so happy to include you into it. Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson is a wholesome and homegrown podcast, whatever you wish to make of that statement, but it's good, and we reckon you made the right choice by tuning in. I'm your host, James Eddy, signing off for another week, and the reassurance of our next episode is only 7 days away. We hope to catch you again, I should say. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and maybe whisper our name in the ear of someone nearby to share the word of Tech Talk. See you soon.